My name is Mila Rivera, and I'm 28 years old. 6 months ago, my franchise owner Marcus Thompson told me I'd never be smart enough to run my own coffee shop. He said it right in front of the entire morning staff, his voice dripping with condescension as he adjusted his expensive watch. Some people are born to serve, Mila. Others are born to lead. You're clearly in the first category. The other employees shifted uncomfortably, but nobody spoke up. That was the moment I decided Marcus Thompson would learn exactly who he was dealing with. He had no idea that the quiet barista he'd been belittling owned more real estate than he'd ever dreamed of. I'd been working at Thompson's Coffee Corner for 8 months, not because I needed the money, but because I wanted to understand the coffee business from the ground up. My late grandmother, Isabella Rivera, had left me a trust fund worth $12 million and a portfolio of commercial properties across 3 states. But I'd kept this secret, living modestly in a small apartment and driving my reliable Honda Civic. I wanted to earn respect through my work ethic, not my bank account. My parents had always taught me the value of humility and hard work, principles my grandmother had instilled in them during their childhood in Puerto Rico before she built her real estate empire. Marcus Thompson was everything I despised about entitled business owners. At 42, he strutted around the coffee shop like he owned the world, treating employees like disposable resources. He'd inherited the franchise from his father and constantly reminded everyone that he was old money. His wife Jennifer was even worse, dropping by weekly to inspect the store with her perfectly manicured nails and designer handbags, making snide comments about the staff's appearance and work ethic. They lived in the wealthy Riverside district, threw lavish parties, and looked down on anyone who wasn't part of their social circle. What they didn't know was that I actually owned the building their flagship store occupied. The mistreatment started small but escalated quickly. Marcus would schedule me for the worst shifts, making me work alone during the busiest hours, while giving the easier schedules to his nephew Danny, a lazy 19-year-old who spent most of his time on his phone. When customers complained about service, Marcus would blame me publicly, even when I wasn't responsible. He'd dock my pay for minor infractions while ignoring Danny's constant mistakes. The breaking point came when he accused me of stealing $20 from the register. I knew it was Danny. I'd seen him pocketing cash, but Marcus refused to check the security cameras. "Your word against a Thompson's," he said with a smirk. Jennifer's visits became increasingly hostile. She'd arrive during my shifts, criticizing everything from how I folded the napkins to the way I greeted customers. "You people need to learn proper customer service," she'd say, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. She complained that I didn't smile enough, that my uniform wasn't pressed perfectly, that I was bringing down the store's image. Last month, she suggested to Marcus that they should upgrade their staff to match their clientele. The implication was clear. They wanted someone who looked like them, someone from their social class. Meanwhile, I was consistently the top performer, bringing in repeat customers and maintaining the highest sales numbers. The other employees started treating me differently too, influenced by Marcus and Jennifer's obvious disdain. Sarah, the assistant manager who'd initially been friendly, began giving me the cold shoulder after Jennifer made comments about maintaining standards. Even some regular customers picked up on the tension, with a few making uncomfortable remarks about my background when they thought I couldn't hear. The atmosphere became toxic. But I endured it because I was gathering valuable intelligence about their business practices. I discovered Marcus was skimming money from corporate, treating employees illegally, and violating several health department regulations. Every slight, every insult was fuel for what I was planning. Marcus's arrogance reached new heights when corporate announced they were looking to expand in our area. He bragged constantly about his connections, his business acumen, his plans to open 3 new locations. "This business requires vision," he'd tell anyone who'd listen. "You need breeding, education, the right background." He made it clear that people like me, working-class Latinos, in his mind, could never understand the complexities of business ownership. When I mentioned I had some experience with real estate, he laughed so hard he nearly choked on his coffee. Stick to making lattes, Rivera. Leave the real business to people who understand it. His nephew Danny actually recorded him saying this, posting it on social media like it was hilarious. The perfect setup came when Marcus announced a mandatory all-staff meeting about the expansion plans. He'd invited Jennifer, Danny, and several of his wealthy friends to observe what he called a masterclass in business leadership. He planned to use the meeting to announce Danny's promotion to assistant manager, despite the kid's complete incompetence. Marcus had already printed business cards and prepared a whole speech about keeping leadership in the family. He'd even invited a local business reporter, hoping to get coverage for his expansion announcement. What he didn't know was that earlier that week, I'd made some phone calls to corporate headquarters and my property management company. The pieces were finally falling into place. The meeting room at the Riverside Community Center was packed with staff, Marcus's friends, and several people I recognized but Marcus didn't. My property manager, Helen Chang, sat quietly in the back row. Corporate executives James Morrison and Patricia Wells had flown in from Chicago, though Marcus assumed they were there to rubber stamp his expansion plans. I dressed more carefully than usual, wearing a simple but elegant business suit that belonged to my grandmother. My lawyer, David Hernandez, was also present, carrying a briefcase full of documents that would change everything. As Marcus began his presentation about vision and leadership, I felt perfectly calm. 28 years of watching powerful people underestimate me had prepared me for this moment. Marcus was in his element, gesturing grandly as he outlined his expansion strategy. Success in this business requires understanding your market, knowing your place in the community, he declared. Some people are natural leaders, born to build empires. Others, his eyes found mine, are meant to support those visions. The room was silent except for the scratch of the reporter's pen. Jennifer nodded approvingly from the front row, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Danny smirked at me from across the room, already acting like the boss he thought he was about to become. Marcus clicked to his next slide, showing projected profits from 3 new locations. The Rivera family will be expanding throughout the district, he announced proudly. That's interesting, I said, standing slowly, because I own most of the commercial real estate in this district. The room went dead silent. Marcus's confident smile faltered. I own the building this flagship store is in. I own the 3 properties you've been trying to lease for your expansion. In fact, I nodded to Helen, who opened her laptop. I own 18 commercial properties in this area, including the shopping center where you live. Jennifer. Helen's presentation filled the screen with property deeds, all bearing the name Rivera Holdings LLC. Marcus's face went white as he recognized the addresses. The reporter's pen was moving frantically now. James Morrison from corporate was trying not to smile. That's impossible, Jennifer sputtered, her composure cracking. You're just a barista. You drive a Honda. I smiled, pulling out my phone to show my banking app. Just the portfolio summary. Nothing too gauche. I drive a Honda because I like Hondas. I work here because I wanted to learn the business before I bought it. Patricia Wells stood up, extending her hand to me. Ms. Rivera, corporate has been very interested in your acquisition proposal. Your grandmother's reputation in commercial real estate precedes you. Marcus looked like he was going to be sick. Acquisition proposal? He croaked. I nodded. I'm buying the entire Thompson's Coffee franchise. Corporate agreed to the sale yesterday. The documents came out then, spread across the table like evidence in a trial. Property deeds showing I owned Marcus's store location and had been his landlord for 8 months. Financial records proving Marcus had been embezzling from corporate and evading taxes. violations reports I'd been filing with the health department and labor board, security footage from my own building's cameras showing Danny stealing from the register. "You've been working for me this whole time," I told Marcus, whose legs seemed to give out as he sank into a chair. "Every insult, every condescending comment, you were saying it to your boss." Jennifer was frantically Googling Rivera Holdings on her phone, her face growing paler with each search result. The reporter was having the time of his life, interviewing Patricia Wells about corporate's decision to sell to me rather than support Marcus's expansion. Ms. Rivera presented a compelling case about toxic management practices and legal violations, Patricia explained. Corporate values align much better with her vision for ethical business practices. Helen was already posting eviction notices. Marcus had 30 days to vacate the building he thought he owned. "Your lease violations alone would justify immediate termination," she told him. But Ms. Rivera is being generous with the timeline. David handed Marcus a thick envelope, severance paperwork and documentation of wage theft. "You'll be hearing from the district attorney's office about the embezzlement charges." Danny started crying, realizing his easy job and promised promotion had evaporated. Sarah, the assistant manager, approached me nervously. "Mila, I'm sorry about how I treated you. I didn't know." I held up a hand. "You treated me poorly because you thought I was powerless. That tells me everything about your character." I turned to address the whole room. "Everyone who treated me with respect and dignity will keep their jobs with raises. Everyone who participated in harassment or discrimination can start looking for new employment." The division in the room was instant and obvious. Several employees looked relieved, while others appeared panicked. Marcus sat in stunned silence, still processing that his entire world had just collapsed. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Local news picked up the story, framing it as a David and Goliath tale with a twist. Marcus's reputation in the business community was destroyed overnight. His wealthy friends distanced themselves immediately, canceling social invitations and removing him from exclusive clubs. Jennifer filed for divorce within 2 weeks, citing financial misrepresentation and public humiliation. The IRS launched a full audit of Marcus's businesses and personal finances. Danny moved back in with his parents and started working at a fast food restaurant for minimum wage. The store's transformation under my ownership became a model for ethical business practices with employee profit sharing and community investment programs. 6 months later, I stood in my renovated flagship store, watching my employees, now partners, serve customers with genuine smiles. The Rivera Coffee Collective had tripled its profits while becoming a community hub for local artists and entrepreneurs. My grandmother's photo hung proudly behind the counter, a reminder of the woman who'd taught me that true power comes from lifting others up, not putting them down. Marcus occasionally drove by, staring through the windows at what he'd lost through his arrogance and cruelty. I'd kept the Honda Civic, though I'd added a Tesla to my garage. Some things change, others remain the same. The difference is choosing what matters and what doesn't.